You're listening to the PGX for Pharmacists podcast, part of the Pharmacy Podcast Network. Pharmacogenomics is the study of how genes affect a person's response to drugs. This revolutionary science combines pharmacology and genomics to develop effective, safe medications and doses that will be tailored to a person's genetic makeup. There's no better healthcare provider positioned to leverage the analytical power of pharmacogenomics to provide more effective medication therapies and outcomes than a clinical pharmacist. And now, here's the host of the PGX for Pharmacists podcast, pharmacist, researcher, and national pharmacogenetics expert, Ken Sternfeld.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Pharmacy Podcast Network. My name is Ken Sternfeld and I am the host of PGX for Pharmacists. It is a forward-thinking conversation between guests who I bring on to the show who want to talk about the exciting issues in our pharmacy profession. So today, I want to welcome Matthew Krzywosz. Matthew is a PharmD and the Partnership Marketing Manager of Antidote. Who is Antidote? Well, Antidote is a digital healthcare company, and they're on a mission. Their singular goal is to accelerate breakthroughs in potential life-saving treatments by bridging the gap between medical research and the people who need it. Hard to believe that in our world, there are about 80% of clinical trials that are delayed or closed because of a lack of patients taking part in those tests. While Antidote uses cutting-edge technology to match the right patients to the right trials. It's precision, almost like PGX pharmacogenetics. They are helping medical researchers make progress. And these new treatment options really are important for patients, so they get them to them faster. So Antidote provides these patients with a very intuitive online tool that allows them to find and connect which specific research trial will make an impact on their life. So again, you could say Antidote is a healthcare provider, and I do. We're going to be putting some information in the notes of this show in for our other pharmacist listeners out there. You really need to look at the things that Antidote is doing because I didn't know about them before I met Matthew. So I want to welcome Matthew to the PGX for Pharmacy show so he can talk to us about how pharmacists can collaborate Antidote, and we can really start to learn something today. So welcome, Matthew.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you for the wonderful intro there. And I'm truly honored to be a part of this show today.
Well, we're excited to have you because we're always looking for new ways to enhance the role of the pharmacist in healthcare. And Antidote, and you being a PharmD and can talk about that, really are information leaders in the kind of delivery that you can do for our pharmacists. So tell us a little bit about the background and your specific position at Antidote.
Yeah, so for me, I am a Butler University pharmacy graduate. Go Dogs. I worked in retail pharmacy for a number of years and also did a little bit of clinical contract work for my current company while I was in school. And then after pharmacy school, I made the trek on over to New York and took a full-time job working for Antidote as a clinical data manager. And that's where I critically analyzed thousands of clinical trial protocols across a wide range of condition areas to support our clinical trials matching tool that you talked about earlier, and also supported some of our other products and services while managing this multinational clinical team that's responsible for simplifying research for patients. So I was doing that, and then more recently as the Partnerships Marketing Manager, I've been instrumental in securing some of these strategic partnerships to grow our extensive network of leading nonprofit organizations, foundations, and patient advocacy groups in order to increase the engagement and the awareness for clinical research out there today.
So you took a traditional pathway, you went to school, you got your PharmD education, you got your license, you went into retail. So what was it that appealed to you as a pharmacist looking to do something out of the box? What appealed to you with the mission or the vision of Antidote, and how did you first hear about them?
Yeah, so how I first heard about them was through one of my connections in pharmacy school. And so I heard about them through some of my work. It was actually the last year of my pharmacy school program, and I decided to take on some contract work for the company, kind of looking and analyzing these clinical trials and simplifying them for patients. And so I was doing that for a bit, and in the back of my mind, the entire time I was doing this, I was thinking to myself on this impact that I'm making on patients on such a more macro level. So for me, I was working in retail pharmacy. I had that a direct patient care and those experiences. But for me, knowing that, with research and all the new drugs and treatments that are continuously coming out, to be able to have an impact and to make that information more easier for patients to understand and hopefully connect to, that's what really drew me to Antidote and what they were trying to solve, which is this mission and this problem that we have where, like you mentioned earlier, 80% of trials are either closed or delayed due to patients not knowing and not realizing that there are these studies out there that they could potentially partake in. So the work that Antidote's doing, it's impacting patients on a such larger scale. And then also too, as a pharmacist, I was always intrigued with some of these new drugs that were being approved and then were lining the shelves of the pharmacy. But for me, I didn't really know the steps and all of the hurdles it takes for a new drug to get there. So the work that Antidote's doing is, at the ground level, we're finding the right patients for these new trials that are testing the safety and the efficacy of these new drugs. So that's what also really fascinated me. And then lastly, our mission at Antidote, like you said, is to bridge the gap between research and the people that need it. So through my experiences in pharmacy school, I was responsible for relaying complex information to patients on a daily basis. And so at Antidote, we're doing the same thing. We're playing that same role from the research perspective. We're taking these highly complex scientific protocols and stripping them of the important and making them more simpler for patients so that they can understand them and then hopefully connect to them.
That's a wonderful story because it's a dream that we all have when we go to pharmacy school to help patients to find those solutions. So really, this dream that you had, and while you were working in retail pharmacy, you actually found someone who could deliver the dream to you. So you reached out, you went out of the box, and you looked at something that could fulfill you as a professional, that could match the better to the goals that you had as a healthcare provider. And I'm sure when you found Antidote, they probably offered you a ton of money to come in. They went, thank God you're here, Matt. Let me just pay you a fortune. Because sometimes when you look to fill your dream, you have to kind of do something to participate in that process, to volunteer, to say, I'll do this because it's important to me. It's not about the money. Was it an opportunity that you developed at Antidote, or was there a position there for you at that time?
So at the time, there was a position for me. I didn't know about it, actually. I had to make a decision. I was going to be working for the pharmaceutical industry for a pharma company actually out here on the East Coast. But little did I know that through my strong work and my connection with my boss at the time, through my work for the company, I was lucky to be in the right place at the right time. However, I like to think of it as a sense, I just built a really strong relationship with my boss and who is now my mentor. And I was able to capitalize and, take this non-traditional path as a pharmacist into the digital healthcare space. So I came out here to New York, didn't really have any, friends or family out here. I've only been out to New York once before, moving out here. And I decided to pave my own path, take the path less traveled. Because, at the end of the day, I always knew, hey, I have my pharmacy background, I have my license. But for right now, there's this opportunity and there's this mission that I'm all about, all for, 100% in. I don't care about the money. I know what Antidote is trying to achieve, and I would love to be on the ground floor to help them reach their goals.
Well, it's pretty scary coming to New York on your own, so kudos to you for going outside the box to follow your dream. Because pharmacists and anyone can't be kind of led down the path for their career by others. If you wanted that to happen that way, then others will determine your future. But you took a very proactive move in your profession to do something that was important to you. So I have a lot of respect and commend you for it. You mentioned something about pharmaceutical company, and you're at that point in your career, you were thinking about that. Can you talk about how Antidote benefits and works with the pharmaceutical industry and your perspective of what a pharmacist's role is in that area?
Yeah, so we work hand in hand with all the major pharmaceutical companies today. And the work we do for them is in the recruitment space. So they all have these clinical trials that they're needing patients for. Now, they usually outreach maybe some CROs, contract research organizations, to help with that. But sometimes the CROs come knocking on our door, or the pharmaceutical companies come knocking on our door directly to help with the recruitment. And so what they do is they have a trial, let's just say it's type 2 diabetes, where they've developed the drug, they've done all the R&D. However, now they need help to find the patients that are near the study sites for the trial. And so they come knocking on our door, and we're able to utilize our marketing professionals and our connections we have with the major nonprofits and healthcare portals, patient advocacy groups, and publishers to drive traffic to these trials that the pharmaceutical companies are needing for their new drugs and treatments. So part of my work right now is I work with a lot of these large organizations, and I share with them these opportunities that they can have to drive some of their patients to these studies that we're looking to recruit for.
Well, you've touched on something very interesting here, and it's kind of your secret sauce. It's kind of how you do it. You touched on the platform, but I think as I've learned a little bit more about Antidote, is you've demystified, you've simplified the process of what a clinical study is and why patients should consider them. I'm going to date myself now, but my perspective of a clinical study was way back when for Pfizer-Hex, when they said that it wasn't healthy for you, and the clinical study was dipping laboratory rats in vats of Pfizer-Hex for hours and hours and hours. The perception, however, of the value of a clinical research study today is it really is critically important to the healthcare system, so pharmaceutical companies can find the right drugs and bring them to market quicker and more effectively so that patients can be treated and served. Can you tell us a little bit about, in its simplest form, what a patient experiences on your platform when you engage with them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of talked about our tool, which is called Antidote Match, and I'll get more into detail here. But before this tool came around, to find a trial, patients would have to search on clinicaltrials.gov or rely on advocacy groups or their physicians to provide them with updated information about studies. However, using Antidote Match, the patient journey to find research now often starts on one of our advocacy partner websites or on our own website. And to use the tool, patients just start the search. They enter their basic info, such as their condition, their zip code, their age, and this helps start narrowing down the list of trials that they might be eligible for. Then they go into choosing how far they're willing to travel for the trial. And then to see all their options in the U.S., they could choose any as a distance they're willing to travel, or up to 100 or 25 miles. Then they answer a few questions about their medical history, and these questions are generated from our structured data and algorithms that allow us to narrow down the trial list based on the eligibility criteria from these trials. Then they can view the results, see the list of eligible trials, and if they want to learn more, they could click on it, and they could then be sent to their email the study information along with the contact information that they could follow up with for the site that's close to them. And so once that's done, we don't have any visibility, but we're really just opening up that door for them to be their own advocates, to go out and, find these studies. And what they could do, they could print this out, they could share it with their physician. They could talk about other healthcare professionals that they might know of to see if this is the right move for them. But we're really just, trying to raise awareness. We have this tool, we have this platform that we provide to, over 250 different partners in our network, so that patients can be their own advocate. And if they want to learn more, they have the tools to do so.
So you're empowering the people who need your help the most, which are the patients, and you're giving them the tools to speak to their physician. I mean, every ad on TV says, ask your doctor about this, ask your doctor about that. So I look at Antidote as being a tool that patients can then go to their doctor and say, and to get that physician engaged. Talk about collaboration with physicians. Do you find that there's pushback? Do you find them embracing clinical studies? Are they participating? What has been your experience in that area?
Yeah, so you know what? By and large, I think the connections with physicians regarding research, that's a vastly untapped market. Right now, there are many reasons why physicians might have a little bit of a blocker in terms of talking about research options to patients. But we all know that patients trust their doctors the most. But the time it takes for physicians to maybe stay up to date on the research options that are around them, on top of the time that they usually have to spend with patients during the visits, it's really pretty minimal. So, this is, like I said, is an avenue of vastly untapped potential. And I think this is one avenue I see Antidote going down, to form more of these strategic partnerships with hospital networks to really address this matter.
So it gets back to workflow. There's no reason why a healthcare provider would not want his or her patient to participate in a trial that could lead them down a path to better health. But like we see in pharmacy, where our intentions are good, sometimes the workflow or the environment doesn't allow us to take the time and make the time to practice at the height of our license. So can you, because we have so many pharmacists who are in retail, either independent or chain store environments, can you walk us through a little bit of the Antidote workflow that you utilize, how you utilize pharmacists, PharmD students of pharmacy, to process this information, to take it from point A to the ultimate result, which is getting that patient engaged in a study?
Absolutely. So I mentioned earlier, there's this government-run website called clinicaltrials.gov that houses all of the clinical trials throughout the world. And so right now in the US, which is our main focus, there's over 22,000 open and recruiting studies that patients can be recruited for. So how our system and our platform works is daily we get a feed from clinicaltrials.gov about all of the trials that are recruiting. And we have those differentiated, and we have workflows that we have this clinical team go in and simplify for our patients. So we get the trial in our system, and with each trial, there's eligibility criteria. You have inclusion criteria, and you have exclusion criteria. And so what our team of PharmDs, pharmacists, med students, medical professionals, any healthcare professional, what they're able to do is they're able to take a look at that eligibility criteria, and then using some of our proprietary language and ontologies, they're able to annotate or just essentially strip the criteria of the important information, and then we're able to then map what they annotated to a medical ontology or a custom ontology that we created. After that's done, we're then able to generate a question based off of what the annotator or the medical professional simplified from that criteria. So once this question is generated, we make it as patient-friendly as possible. Once that's done, that is then able to be used in this tool, our clinical trial search tool, Antidote Match. So the patient, inputs their condition, and then they have a list of questions that are coming directly from the eligibility criteria from these trials that we have, pharmacists, PharmDs, students of pharmacy, med students, anybody with a medical background. They're able to simplify these trials.
So clearly an area for growth within our profession. You talked about the potential, the opportunity to connect more patients to these studies. You're talking about a growth area. And in pharmacy, as a pharmacist, you're looking for growth areas. You've identified the fact that a PharmD and a student of pharmacy can be involved in the process, which tells me that you're a forward-thinking company who wants to enhance the role of a pharmacist in healthcare. So if you will be so kind to allow me to talk about my favorite subject, which is the next generation of PharmDs, the students, because as you know, it's a commitment that we've made to educate them so that they can go on a pathway to provider status by being involved at the point of care and remotely to offer patient-centric services. Can you tell me, do you utilize interns? Do you mentor and train? And if you do, how does it feel to give back to the profession and kind of pay it forward as a mentor?
Yeah, so I would like to first start off by saying that I wouldn't be here talking to you right now if it wasn't for the guidance of my mentors. I'd like to give a quick shout out to Stefan Tomic and Tyler Truegg for making my life a whole lot easier and for paving the path for where I am today. Now, as I sit here with this platform, I want to say that it should be every pharmacist and every pharmacy student's imperative to find and never let go of your mentors. I'm a firm believer in the saying that it's all about the hands you shake, especially as you progress in your career. I'm now proud to say that I've been able to mentor and guide dozens of student pharmacists and pharmacists as they've needed guidance in school and in their professional career, just through my connections here at Antidote, working with them, managing them, and being that leader in this space. It's something that I will never take for granted. And also, too, as pharmacists are starting to realize the vast sea of opportunities that are out there, I encourage them to put more thought into the path less traveled. Because at the end of the day, we are in the game for the same reason. It's to provide patients with the care that they deserve.
Those words are very, very beautiful to hear, but more beautiful to know that you believe them and you've put them into practice. So we love that kind of vision, that kind of commitment to the next generation. And there are so many other opportunities on the Pharmacy Podcast Network for someone like yourself, Matt, to really share that vision. There are other shows with future leaders and other initiatives. I encourage you to be a regular guest, not just even on our show, but on other podcasts, and reach out, because your message is very, very impactful, and it should be heard by more pharmacists and more students of pharmacy. In the last couple of minutes we have on the show, it's called PGX for Pharmacists, and every once in a while, the founder says to me, well, you got to talk about PGX. Now, I know that Antidote does not effectively reduce, and in fact reduce the risk of adverse drug reactions. But can you tell me a little bit about your personal and your professional perspective on how this precision medicine impacts our healthcare system and can in fact perhaps be associated or involved with the things that you do at Antidote?
Yeah, definitely. So with the precision medicine initiative and where it stands today, I could speak on how clinical trials are becoming more and more targeted based on these genetic factors. More specifically, with these treatments, they're becoming more and more targeted based on genomics. Eligibility criteria is only becoming more complex, and trials will only become more difficult to recruit for. So that's why it's so important for pharmacists and pharmacy students to become aware and to get the word out about these research options that might be a little bit more tailored and more specific for these different patients.
Wow. So if you were a retail pharmacist and you had a day off, a thing you might want to look at would be getting involved with something that Antidote is doing to connect physicians to the patients, to the clinical research, and doing something perhaps that ties into pharmacogenetics, so the right drug and the right dose is prescribed right from the beginning. I want to thank you, Matt, for taking the time today to share your thoughts, your vision of your company. You're welcome anytime back on PGX for Pharmacists, because we're trying to change the DNA of the profession and how pharmacists can be inserted as healthcare providers, and especially when we dispense these cutting-edge new drugs. When they show up on our shelves, it would be wonderful to have been involved with how those drugs came to market and how they impacted the patients that we serve every day. So I believe the pharmacist needs to be right at the center hub, the fulcrum of raising awareness to connect more patients to more clinical research studies so more lives can be saved. And I believe that, and I'm so glad that we found you, and we found each other, and we'll be looking to do more collaboration in the months and years ahead.
Absolutely, Ken. Thank you so much for reaching out and for providing me with this opportunity to share my knowledge with the rest of the pharmacy world out there. Looking forward to speaking with you more about this and also working with you here more in the future.
And if you have a handle or a contact information, we'll put that in the notes section. But if there's a Twitter handle, you can call it out now to our listeners so they can follow you. Or
yeah, you could follow Antidote at Antidote_me.
Excellent. And of course, we are at PGX, the number 4 RX. Well, please follow at Pharmacy Podcast, because there's so much information for any pharmacist and any student of pharmacy to learn and to know to enhance their career. I thank you all for listening, and we look forward to seeing you on the very next show. Have a wonderful day.